What's up, metalheads? Welcome to the Scrap Metal Podcast, the show for the Misfits who've been listening to the same music since high school. I'm your host, John Von Frankenstein, and joining me today is my metal thrashing mad co-host, Chris. Chris, I gotta ask you, man, how you feeling?
I gotta say, I am feeling like an outlaw.
An outlaw, oh boy. You're on a steel horse you ride, you know, and you got your shackles? Not shackles. What am I thinking of? Spurs? You got your spurs. You're walking into town. This town ain't big enough for the two of us. Let me stop. Chris, does this feeling of being an outlaw have anything to do with how you're keeping your heavy metal street cred?
We'll workshop it.
You got it. I'm down for the ride.
But the new Star Wars video game, Star Wars Outlaws, just came out. And
there we go.
I'm sure it's come up before. I'm a big fan of Star Wars. You know, I love Star Wars. And not in that like weird YouTuber way where they say they love Star Wars, then all they do is fucking complain about Star Wars. I actually enjoy Star Wars. And this game coming out is so much fucking fun. It's, you know, they're claiming the first open world. There may have been other open world Star Wars games, but this is the first open world Star Wars game. You visit different planets, including the iconic planet of Tatooine. You visit the Mos Eisley spaceport, the Cantina, so you see a lot of familiar locations, characters. It's a lot of fun, and, you know, like I mentioned, Star Wars fans love to hate on Star Wars. This game had a lot of
thing to do.
Yeah, this game had a lot of controversy before it even came out because people were mad that you played as a woman, it seemed like. Plus, they were mad at Ubisoft because recently Ubisoft has a reputation of creating some like good but disappointing games or lots of microtransactions. And I will say I had a really weird experience playing this game. I paid for like early access, 3-day early access. So I preload the game at midnight. The game is available. I start playing and I'm noticing some really weird stuff going on. Like the main character in the cutscenes, her like eyes are like spinning around and acting weird. And then like I'm in I get into a firefight with enemies and their arms are like glitching where they're like pointing the gun at themselves, but the blasts are still coming my way. I'm supposed to climb a cliff and I get stuck in this weird spot where I can't climb up and I had to fall off and then get up. There was some weird instances where like the camera got stuck and I'm like, oh, when they meant get early access, they meant early access because this is kind of a mess.
Yeah.
The next day I get an email from Sony like, we done goofed and uploaded the wrong version of the game. You should now have a patch that is the correct version of the game, and you're going to have to restart because if you continue to play on that previous save, the previous version is tied to that previous save, and people who got a lot further than me got to a point where, like, the game just stopped. They couldn't move on. They couldn't progress. God. So it was funny to see that and get the confirmation like, oh yeah, there was something wrong. And then when I replay it, I'm like, yeah, this feels way different than what I was playing last night. And like people were mad because it's like I paid for the early access. You know, the 2 hours I played, other people would put in way more hours than that. But the 2 hours I played, I had to replay. So I didn't even really get those 2 hours. I did get an email from Ubisoft where they're like, hey, we're giving you some like free skins and shit like that. But yeah, that's been my saga with Star Wars Outlaws. But aside from that mess that Sony caused, which is more funny than anything in my opinion,
yeah,
I've been having a lot of fun. Like I said, I get to visit some familiar places, see some familiar characters, so I'm enjoying the hell out of Star Wars Outlaws.
That's pretty awesome. At least they did right and sent out a patch and were like, hey, here's some free shit because you guys probably invested some time. But yeah, I can imagine people that had gotten like way further than you had, you know what I mean? And put in way more time, must have been so incredibly upset. It's just I don't know why, like, as opposed to rushing it, I mean, I guess it is because they know that people will pay for the early access. But isn't that something similar had happened with like Cyberpunk? Like that game had a bunch of bugs in it too.
So Cyberpunk was similar but different. with this particular game, with Star Wars, it was 100% on Sony.
Okay.
Sony put up the wrong version of the game.
Right,
no
right.
one on Xbox had this issue. The issue
Right.
was isolated to PS5.
Okay.
With like Cyberpunk, or like many years ago when I feel like I got scammed by No Man's Sky, that game, you know, these games come out and yeah, they do feel rushed, or they feel like, you know, especially with, I think, a game like Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk took like 10 years to come out or something ridiculous.
Right, yeah.
Like they made an announcement trailer and then you didn't hear anything until like half a decade later. And then it was still several years after that until the game finally came out, and it was a mess. Apparently they've cleaned it up, and that's the one cool thing me and my brother have talked about, that if a game comes out and it's messed up, or there's something that you don't like about the game, or there's something that users don't like about the game, since everything is digital now, these companies can just kind of fix the game. That happened with
Right.
a WWE game a couple years ago. People that were colorblind couldn't tell the difference between the colors of the borders that were selecting which character and which option. So they would think they were
okay.
picking one option or one wrestler, and then realize they picked something else. So through a patch, they fixed that, made the color more obvious, and made it easier for people to tell. And so
That's
they've
fucking
done
cool.
similar things for Cyberpunk. You know, me and my brother bought WWF No Mercy in the year 2000, and every single cartridge had a save glitch. And once a week, our collective data of storyline progression and created wrestlers would just be deleted. And so we're like, wow, this kind of sucks. And at the time
Right.
we were kids, we weren't really talking to like other people in like, I guess, a gaming community. Apparently we
Right.
could have gotten a free replacement, but didn't know that.
Sure,
But
yeah.
like nowadays, if a
Especially
game
back
comes
then,
out,
how would you have ever even known?
yeah, if a game comes out with a game-breaking save glitch, they can fix that in a patch.
Yeah.
25 years ago, not so much.
That's, you know, what's funny about the world of gaming is like people who play like Madden and 2K
Yeah,
or whatever.
Yeah, NBA 2K.
These games are taken so seriously. There's tournaments, you know what I mean? Like
Yep.
people go and like spend money to go to these arenas or like these conference centers where they have these tournaments going on, and then you've got the seeds going through, and like, you know, you're seeing guys play against each other, and that's wild that you've got like that level of dedication and that level of fandom around these games. But, you know, seeds aren't just for video games. They're for sports. They're for, I guess, just mainly sports. I'm kind of wrong about what I'm saying. But
Anything
in
that
this episode,
anything that has any sort of tournament setup, wink, wink, is going to have seeding, is what you're saying.
Yes. Now, Chris is going to teach me all about planting a seed today with his genius idea of Heavy Metal Mascot Battle Royale Brackets. That's a long title. I just read it right now. Chris, I was really excited for you to teach me how these seeds work. I guess I know what it's like. You know, we're pinning two mascots from heavy metal lore up against one another and just seeing who's going to come out the winner. Not just by how cool we think they are, but like who could actually win in a fight. You know what I mean? It's like putting the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man up against the crocodile from Spider-Man or something like that. I don't. That's a really weird example. But Chris, save me. I'm talking in a loop here. Are you excited to go into our mascot battle royale bracket?
Yes, absolutely. Like you said, I brought this up because I had this idea, you know, you see the countdown lists of who's the best heavy metal mascots, who's the coolest heavy metal mascots. Yeah. And I thought it would be fun to, instead of talking about who we think is the coolest, we, you know, like you said, seed them in an order, like as if they were making the playoffs or a tournament, and debate who would win in a fight as we pit them against each other. And plus, look at March Madness. Who doesn't love a good bracket? You know?
Yeah.
So I thought this would be so much fun to kind of debate, like I said, instead of focusing on just who we think is cool or which bands are our favorites,
Right.
which of these mascots would win in a fight against these other mascots? And so that was the inspiration for this episode. And yes, I sent you the start of this bracket, and we will see who makes it to the final 2 spots and who is considered the ultimate winner of the Heavy Metal Mascot Battle Royale.
I am so excited about this, and I want to apologize to everybody for how frantic that introduction was. Simply because I'm excited to learn something new, and I'm excited to learn about brackets and how that works. And Chris told me that if you go right now on placeyourbets.com.gov, you can start placing bets on these guys. So let's see how this goes. YouTube is going to take us down immediately.
Yes.
Like, no, this is not what this website is for. All right, Chris, what's our first round? Who's our first battle? This is going to be like celebrity deathmatch. I fucking love this.
Yeah, pretty much. So, I think it'll be fun to reveal which mascots we're dealing with as we get through each fight. So our first match in round 1 is the Iron Maiden mascot Eddie taking on the Megadeth mascot of Vic Rattlehead, which, funny enough, I couldn't remember his name, which we actually renamed him David H. Death. But in my notes, I originally wrote Rattle Bones.
Yeah.
And then went back and was like, no, it's Vic Rattlehead. And I thought it would be fun to start with someone as iconic as Eddie. And as much as we have our opinions on Megadeth, Vic Rattlehead is a pretty iconic mascot as well. Out of the big 4, he's definitely the most iconic. He has been on album covers. You know, he was on the first album cover, not to the way we remember him as, but that was, the skull on Killing's My Business is Vic Rattlehead. So I thought this would be a fun one to start with. So right away, I will say that in this battle, I think Eddie has the clear advantage.
Yeah. Because
Eddie has experienced a lot of crazy shit. And for the most part, he is shown as being successful in defeating whatever he's facing in this crazy shit. It's on the album of Killers, he more or less looks like he's like a serial killer with a hatchet. You got someone clawing at him. But then you get to the point where he's like a cyborg, or, I forget, what's that? I forget which album.
Something in Time?
Yeah, Something in Time. See, I always want to say Brave New World, but I know it's not Brave New World. Brave New World is like Eddie's image as like a ghost in the sky above London. He's been a mummy. He's been a Grim Reaper in a weird CGI Eyes Wide Shut where there's a baby dancing on the back of a wolf. So Eddie has really seen some shit. Whereas Vic Rattlehead, he's a guy in a suit, more or less.
Yeah.
And he's kind of it's more of what Vic Rattlehead represents. Vic Rattlehead represents being, the CEO, the politician, the reason why there's nukes going off, or alien invasions on I'm looking at the album cover and can't remember the name of it. Rust in Peace. He's kind of got that vibe about him, but at the same time, I'm kind of like, his mouth is bolted shut, so he can't eat. Clearly, he's a guy who died because his mouth is bolted shut. So I think, in my opinion, Eddie's already won because he could just run him over like in a tank or some shit. So I'm kind of ready to move Eddie on to round 2.
So the way I thought about it was, and this goes back to Vic's mouth being shut as well, I was like, if they're fighting each other, Vic can't even try to take a bite out of Eddie or anything like that. He can't go for the ear. He can't do a classic shitty move and try to, sucker one in there. Eddie just seems more formidable, like you said, he's been through fucking wars. He's been through all this craziness, and isn't he holding like a cleaver on the Killers cover? Yes, the Killers album cover, he has a hatchet in his hand, covered in blood, and you can see the hands of someone who he is clearly in the middle of murdering, clawing at his shirt. I'm not sure if
because Eddie on Iron Maiden looks completely different from like every other Eddie.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if he's like holding a knife or anything, but definitely not a dude you want to run into in like a dark alleyway.
Right, exactly. Where Vic is more like, Vic always seems like the unintended victim of whatever's going on Megadeth's album covers, where Eddie seems like he's the aggressor. So that's where I'm giving Eddie the advantage here. So, I mean, if we're in agreement here, I say Eddie moves on in round 2.
All right, here we go.
He took Vic by an uppercut, and then he just fucking gave him a liver shot with that cleaver.
Hell yeah.
He just took him out.
All right, so our first matchup in round 1, Eddie over Vic Rattlehead, moving on to round 2. All right, our second matchup, I've wanted to keep us going with some classic metal mascots and metal bands. We got Snaggletooth, the mascot of Motorhead, taking on Murray, the mascot of Dio. Now, this might be a little bit unfair. Right. And I will say, in my quote-unquote randomly seeded order, these were kind of the two odd men out, where I was like, these are the only guys going up against each other, where literally the only thing they have in common is that it's like, oh, they're from classic bands that everyone loves. Yeah. Everyone else kind of has a reason for why they're facing each other. So I think Murray has a very clear advantage, only because it's hard for me to tell the scale at which Snaggletooth exists. Because Snaggletooth is just a skull with the tusks and chains and all this and that.
Fucking spiked helmet.
He's got some stuff going on, but if he's just the size of like a normal human skull, Murray is a massive demon from hell whose introduction to the world was wrapping a priest in chains and throwing him in the ocean. So as much as I love Snaggletooth's look with the chains and the tusks and the helmet and, you know, all of that, I think Murray clearly has way more power and is way more powerful and has, you know, is just going to destroy Snaggletooth, which like hurts me to say, but I kind of feel like Murray has the powers of hell on his side.
Right.
Because he's clearly from hell.
Right.
And so that's kind of the way I'm leaning right now.
Murray reminds me of the segment in Fantasia. What is that, Chernobog? The big vampire demon guy that they had Bela Lugosi come in and do like, not mocap, but like animation references and stuff for. That's what Murray reminds me of. Also, how did you find out his name is Murray?
Oh, it's I had known the character was referred to as Murray, and then I found out, I read very quickly that apparently in the liner notes of a Dio album, a short story was written about how Murray was a character that Ronnie James Dio knew as a child, and that Ronnie James Dio would meet Murray in a cave, and Murray would tell him stories and all this and that.
Very Dio.
And that like Dio and Murray became best friends because of that.
All right. Now, I feel like, okay, so the way that I'm imagining Snaggletooth is that he's not a normal human-sized skull. I see him as like this giant thing, right? Where like, those got to be some big-ass chains, is what I'm saying. And now, if he's just a disembodied head, he's got to have the power to fly around.
That's true.
So Murray's pretty big, right? Like it's going to take time for him to kind of whip up those chains and try and whip him at Snaggletooth, and he's going to be hard for him to get. I don't know. Snaggletooth may be able to come in with like a peekaboo boxing type style and just kind of like bop him with his little chains and his tusks and stuff. That might be tough.
Yeah, that's true. Snaggletooth could definitely be, you know, fast and crafty and stuff like that. And, you know, Snaggletooth has those chains already. If he gets more chains mixed up in his tusks, can he use those to pull Murray around?
There you go. Am I changing your mind here? Because I think I may have to go for Snaggletooth.
This is a tough one because, like I said, Murray clearly has the powers of hell behind him.
Yes.
You know, on other
Murray has
album
size
covers.
and the powers of hell.
Yeah. He's, you know, shown on other Dio album covers as lording over hell. But you know what? I think I'll give this to Snaggletooth.
All right, I convinced you.
And I'll tell you why. There is a Dio album cover that features Murray outside of like a window with like the moon behind him. Mm-hmm. And the way he's standing there with like crossed, devil's horns, just like Dio always threw out. He looks more like he's a protector.
He's a lover, not a fighter.
Whereas Snaggletooth looks like he's just ready to fuck your shit up.
Yeah.
And while I'm sure Murray would be a great protector and would do a great job of defending anyone or protecting anyone, I think you're onto something. That Snaggletooth is pretty aggressive.
Yeah.
Would fuck your shit up. And I think as the underdog in this fight, Snaggletooth comes out on top.
There we go.
How exciting.
I love that I convinced you.
So, moving on to round 2 is Snaggletooth, the mascot for Motorhead. So, in our next round 1 matchup, is a couple of Danzig skulls. We got the Fiend skull from the Misfits, and we got the skull from Danzig, which is named Crystar. Now, here's something interesting that I learned. The Danzig skull was actually copied from the cover of a failed Marvel comic book series called Crystar. And that this skull was featured on the cover of issue number 8.
Oh, that's right.
There was only 11 issues, but issue number 8, this skull was taken from. And so the skull as it appears on Danzig is not actually the way it looks on the cover of this comic book. Danzig had to actually continue drawing the skull because the full skull was not featured on the cover. But much like how some demons from Hell Awaits were traced from a magazine and comic book, it's clear that Crystar, the Danzig skull, was also traced from this comic book, but then Glenn Danzig expanded on what that skull looked like.
Right.
And we are putting this skull up against the Fiend skull for the Misfits. Now, this is another case where while the logos themselves are just skulls, the Fiend skull has been shown to be like a bit of a Grim Reaper type of figure at times as well, and has a full body. So again, I think this is a case where for me, Crystar, the skull for Danzig, appears to just be a skull. And it's just kind of sitting there. And I think the Fiend skull could just kind of like smash it and win. That's kind of the way I'm feeling right now.
So I feel like I'm on the side of the skulls this episode, and I'll tell you why, right? So the Fiend skull comes from like a B horror movie.
Yeah.
Right? He's basically like you said, like a Grim Reaper, almost like Phantom of the Opera type character. And he, like, the skull itself is super imposing, like really oddly proportioned, but it makes for a really cool character. Where Crystar, I believe, and I don't know if you're going to allow me to do this, but on the Samhain album cover for All Hallows Eve, I think, you see Crystar as like having a full body. So he looks sort of like the Violator
That's
from
true.
Spawn.
Yes,
So
I forgot about
big
that.
Fucking dude.
He is the Violator from Spawn. That's true.
So
I forgot about
I may have
that.
to give it to Crystar.
That's right. I forgot. He looks like the Violator. Oh, and in reading about Crystar, I'd also seen some... We're giving this to Crystar because I saw some sick fucking album covers with like a cross with this skull like biting into Jesus or some shit. Like it was some super like sacrilegious type of shit. Like, So yeah, that's true. See, so much of the Danzig skull's portrayals has been just a skull. Even on the comic book cover, it's just a skull. I forgot that, yes, there is that one album cover where it looks like the Violator from Spawn.
There's like 3 of them. So like, hypothetically, you're taking on 2 other dudes. It's like a raptor attack. They come from the sides when you least expect them, and then you call them a clever girl.
Clever girl.
It's got to go to Crystar.
All right, once again, you convinced me. Crystar is moving on to round
baby.
2.
Doyle rules!
All right, our next matchup here in round 1 is Not Man, the mascot for Anthrax, taking on Roy, which is the surprisingly boring name for the Grim Reaper on all of the Children of Bodom album covers.
How did you discover his name is Roy? And I didn't know that. I didn't even know who the artist was when we did our Heavy Metal Landscapes episode.
Yeah, I did a Google search of heavy metal mascots, and right there in a Loudwire article, they said his name was Roy. And I was like, sure, I'll buy that.
It might be the name of the friend that they had model for them.
Yeah,
or even the artist, because I feel like he's the one who posed for it.
I really don't know where the name came from. I just know he's called Roy.
It didn't go any further than that.
So this is another matchup that is, a classic of a man facing his own mortality. Essentially,
right?
Not Man. The image
He's just an Italian guy from Queens.
Yeah, the image I shared with John is him on a skateboard, which I believe was his first appearance on an Anthrax t-shirt. Just a guy riding a skateboard. But I have a t-shirt where he's being portrayed as King Kong. He's been put in different Anthrax album covers. He's never been on an Anthrax album cover. He's only ever been on merchandise, and his face will sometimes be put in the Among the Living album cover, or I think they put his face in for the guy who's the skull with the crown in Blood Eagle Wings. I think there's a shirt or some merch that looks like that. But as much as I love Anthrax, and as much as I love my Not Man t-shirts, the Grim Reaper is undefeated against Man. And I think I'm kind of going to have to give this to Roy.
I am so fucking surprised right now. Oh my God. You have flipped my pitch on its head. Okay. So, I mean, I want to agree with you because I love Children of Bodom and I love Roy. And Roy, similar to Eddie, has been on every album cover in all manner of ways, but there's something about a possibly Italian guy on a skateboard from Queens that's fucking terrifying. He's got the crazed look in his eyes. His smile is fucking crazy. Those are some, I will bite you teeth that Not Man is displaying. And he's got a skateboard.
He's armed.
So not only can he ride away and evade death, so to speak, but he can also use it, who knows, as a boomerang even. Maybe. He just tosses it at Roy and it comes back to him. All right. Give me the setup. Give me the setup. What kind of setting do we see them in? Where are they facing each other? Let's set the scene here.
I mean, I think the Grim Reaper always comes to you, right?
Right. Okay.
So clearly Not Man is just skateboarding somewhere in one of the 5 boroughs. Because I said, he's been portrayed as climbing the Chrysler building like he's King Kong. Here he's clearly skateboarding.
So he's able to morph his body.
See, that's the thing. He has a lot of powers like that. He can change how the rest of his body is portrayed. He is cursed with the same face in every form he takes. But Not Man does have the ability to change his the rest of his appearance. You know what this feels like right now? And I'm actually glad you're taking this this approach, because I was ready to concede and say, the mascot of my favorite band doesn't stand a chance against the Grim Reaper. But this feels like in The Sims, when the Grim Reaper shows up, you can play rock, paper, scissors against the Grim Reaper to save the lives of your Sims. And I think Not Man is undefeated in rock, paper, scissors against Roy. And that's why Not Man keeps winning.
There we go.
I think that's what we have going on here.
Not Man gets it.
So Not Man gets it. Not Man moves on to round 2. All right, so we're halfway through round 1. Our next...
This is fucking fun. This is... I want to do more of these now. Except I'm not willing to lose any money. like I don't even like doing Super Bowl boxes because I don't understand the concept. And people are like, no, you got to pick the number and it depends on the score that the round ends in, and whatever the score is at the end of that round, then that's if you win.
They're called quarters.
The quarters, yes. You're telling me there's no ring girl in fucking football?
Ah, fuck, I wish there was.
Don't the Dallas Cowboy girls come out at every football game?
That's the best part of watching a Cowboys game.
Right. Oh, man. All right. Who's our next who's our next round?
So the next round one matchup is a matchup between some German thrash metal bands. We've got the Mad Butcher, who represents Destruction, taking on who I'm just referring to as Traitor Guy.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
The Mad Butcher was introduced, I believe, on the Mad Butcher EP from Destruction, and since then has appeared on some album covers, has appeared on merch, and has kind of become the mascot for the band Destruction. Traitor Guy is just the long-haired guy on the cover of every album who has these razor-sharp teeth. And on their first album cover, he's just like, he kind of looks like Nathan Explosion with razor teeth. And is firing a submachine gun at what appears to be Dave Mustaine.
Yeah.
And every album since then, the Traitor Guy is in worse circumstances and looks like even more of like a beast and less of a human, to the point that Exiled to the Surface, like he looks like he is just as deformed and like mutated as the creature he's fighting.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's supposed to be the same species as the Predator. Because Traitor has a song, I believe, on this album called Skinned Alive. Yeah. So that's just a fucking Predator, dude.
So we are basically putting a Predator against, which is more or less just a serial killer. Yeah. Like, I don't think the Mad Butcher really stands much of a chance against Traitor Guy, and I think this is essentially Traitor making their move to take out Destruction and take their place in the Teutonic Big Four. I think that's what's happening here, is that Traitor Guy is making their move.
Look at Traitor Guy's physique. Obviously, he's up on his cardio. And the Mad Butcher, I mean, I love him. I love a hefty guy. I'm one myself. But there's no way he's outrunning Traitor Guy. It's just not happening.
Definitely
not happening. We have to give it to our boys in Traitor.
And yeah, absolutely. And Traitor does have Angel Ripper of Sodom on their side in their Teutonic Thrash.
Yes.
So I think Traitor Guy does take this one, and Traitor Guy will be moving on to round 2.
You think he looks like Dave Mustaine? I always thought it looked more like Kurt Cobain, because he's got flannel on, doesn't he? On that first album,
I thought he was wearing a leather jacket. I don't fucking know.
He might be.
It's a cross between the two, let's say, and it's Traitor making a statement that they don't like grunge or Dave Mustaine.
Kurt Mustaine. Or Dave Cobain.
Dave Cobain. Oh boy. There's a frightening thought. So moving on in round 1, we have some military minds facing each other. We have Sergeant D, representing S.O.D, the Stormtroopers of Death, taking on Knarrenheinz, the mascot of the German band I just mentioned, Sodom. This is a fun one. And I think what's fun about this one is that Sergeant D, he's a sergeant. He's kind of the one in charge. He's the one giving the orders. Knarrenheinz is the one in a gas mask firing a machine gun at everyone. And on the Tapping the Vein album cover, he's clearly being injected with some sort of super soldier serum or some shit. Yeah. And since then, he's been on every Sodom cover. He's always either killing people or standing around surrounded by people he's killed. This is a really tough one for me because I love both bands. And I think both are capable of atrocities. Right. On the album covers, I picked Bigger Than the Devil and Tapping the Vein. Sergeant D, it's his full body controlling the devil like you see Eddie doing on Number of the Beast.
Yeah.
I think Sargent D has the advantage in that he is higher ranking and can kind of command other people to do his bidding. But at the same time, I 100% see Knarrenheinz pulling like, who is it? Vincent D'Onofrio's character in Full Metal Jacket, where he kills
Sergeant Pyle.
Yeah,
Private Pyle.
where he kills the drill sergeant and then himself in the bathroom.
Yeah.
So like, I can honestly see this going either way. What do you think?
Here's the real deciding factor, right? Because Knarrenheinz just looks fucking jacked.
Yes.
And he's on the front lines. He's willing to do the killing. Sergeant D, the killing's behind him. So that tidbit aside, we have to flip the names upside down. We have to flip the logos upside down. And who's got the cooler name? Wodos or Hatheadur fo Srota? I'm not going to try it.
I would have just gone Dose.
Yeah. Wodos. Wodos absolutely gets it.
You know, like I said, this is definitely the toughest one. And I can already see that the last matchup in this round will be equally tough for me. But
All right.
This has been the toughest one. You're right. Knarrenheinz will fuck your shit up.
Oh, yeah. He's willing to fucking put in the work.
I feel like in the lyrics of Sergeant D or March of the S.O.D., whichever fucking song it is on Speak English or Die, they talk about, Sergeant D coming after you. Your name is on his list, things like that.
Yeah.
Clearly Sergeant D is in charge, but is in charge in a way where like he's going to make your day terrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Knarrenheinz being the one who's on the front lines, being all jacked up on whatever the fuck is being injected into him, on tapping the vein.
The same shit that Bane has.
Yeah, fucking Venom,
Venom.
Whatever it is. Yeah, I think this is going to have to go to Knarrenheinz. He's clearly the one who's he's clearly the one who is going to do all of the killing. Sergeant D, not sure how much killing he's personally doing. Knarrenheinz, like I'm saying, this is definitely a situation where he was under Sergeant D's command and has had enough and is pointing the gun at Sergeant D. So Knarrenheinz is definitely the one moving on to round 2. All right. So next in this matchup is basically the epitome of the, hey, can I copy your homework? Sure, just don't make it obvious meme. Because we have the Overkill mascot Chally taking on the Avenged Sevenfold mascot Skullbat, which apparently is its name, which like even that name sucks. And clearly Chally is winning this. Chally's the original. Chally has experience. Chally can shoot fucking lasers from his eyes.
Yes.
Chally takes this 100%.
I have no notes. This is perfect. That was an easy one.
That was very easy. I had to throw some easy ones in there. I figured, Eddie versus Vic Rattlehead seemed pretty easy to us. This, I was like, I need to throw one in that is not going to be us endlessly debating. There's a very clear winner here, and it's Chally. Bringing us...
You're honoring Chally yourself
yes,
today,
I am. Got a couple of Challys right here, so...
And he can multiply!
Yes! But he misspelled the town of Patchogue on the back of this shirt, so...
God damn it. All right. Spelling can't be everyone's strong suit.
Finally, our final first round matchup is between, I don't know if this is officially his name, but the Manowarrior, the faceless warrior seen on most Manowar album covers,
He's the everyman.
Taking on the Baphogoat, as it's been referred to on the cover of Slayer's Show No Mercy. Now, I will say I took some liberties with Slayer's mascot here, because the Baphogoat only appears on this one album, and it's really more of a fan thing, considering the Baphogoat to be the mascot. Officially, the mascot is this, like, screaming skull with a World War II helmet, but I kind of felt like there was a lot of skulls. And plus, I think the Baphogoat is way fucking cooler.
Yeah, yeah.
So I went with the Baphogoat off of the Show No Mercy album cover. And this matchup, I think, is a perfect matchup and is a closely contested matchup because you have the sword-wielding Baphogoat, a beast armed with a giant fucking sword, taking on the Manowarrior, a jacked up guy with a giant fucking sword. They're going to have the most epic sword fight, like, across all the realms. They will decimate the continent of Europe. They will fight to hell. They will fight up to Valhalla. This matchup between these two is going to be a bloody, bloody affair. I do think it leans in favor of one of these mascots over the other for kind of a silly reason. The fact that the Manowarrior is the official mascot and has survived album cover after album cover after album cover, I'm kind of leaning towards the Manowarrior. Plus, so much of Manowar's music is about being triumphant and slaying beasts and just being, having success and victory. And sure, there is glory in battle and in losing and making your way to Valhalla. But I think in this particular case, the Manowarrior isn't ready for Valhalla yet. The Manowarrior is going to slay the Baphogoat, as much as I hate to say it, because I love Show No Mercy. I love Slayer. I love this Baphogoat. I think this goes in favor of the Manowarrior.
Now, I have to agree with you, but for a different reason. The Manowarrior on this particular album cover seems to also be wielding lightning, based on that ring that he's holding.
Yes.
So, I was going to give it to him for that reason. He's a Frank Frazetta-looking warrior with a big-ass sword, and he looks to be able to control lightning as well. So, for those reasons, I'm agreeing with you. The Manowarrior absolutely takes the Baphogoat.
All right, so the Manowarrior moving on to round 2. So now,
holy shit,
we're moving on to round 2 where things get really intense. Our first round 2 matchup is between Eddie of Iron Maiden and Snaggletooth of Motorhead. Like we said, Eddie has gone through some shit. Snaggletooth is kind of crafty. This is a tough one.
Yeah.
I think Snaggletooth could fuck some shit up. But like we said, between Snaggletooth and Murray, Snaggletooth is the aggressive one.
Yeah.
Eddie has also been shown to be the aggressor.
Yeah, Eddie is equally aggressive, yes.
And if this is a battle between an aggressive, disembodied head with some giant tusks and chains versus an aggressive British soldier in the Revolutionary War, British soldier in a tank, a serial killer, a Grim Reaper, a cyborg, a mummy.
Yeah.
I think this is gonna go Eddie's way. Eddie has caused a lot of damage and a lot of violence, both, to his victims and to our eyeballs on that Dance of Death album cover. So I think I'm giving this to Eddie.
I was going to say that Eddie has the advantage of military strategy on his side, right? Because in every occasion that we've seen him within some sort of war, he is always the victor.
Yes.
So yeah, for that reason, like being a rough and tumble hooligan is only going to get Snaggletooth so far.
Yeah.
Eddie's got strategy on his side.
That's
He's
true.
Thinking through every move. He's 3 steps ahead of you. Kind of like this fucking mosquito that just flew by as you were fucking speaking. I don't know if you saw me hold myself back, but I almost got this guy. The final bracket is going to be me between this fucking mosquito that's been flying around right now.
Oh boy.
I held it together. I didn't smack my mic. I told you it was going to land on my microphone and bite me on the lip.
That would have been fucking hilarious, though, if you did smack the microphone. All right, let's use that aggression as we move on to the next round 2 matchup, which is between Crystar, the Danzig Skull, and Anthrax's Not Man. Like we established, Crystar is the Violator.
Yeah.
But Not Man does have the body morphing capabilities, and
he's from Queens, man.
He's from Queens.
We're always going to make it out.
And I think, the Violator was defeated by Spawn, and Spawn's cape has some pretty cool shape-shifting abilities. Not Man is proven to have some shape-shifting abilities.
Yeah.
I think this is, once again, Not Man, I think, coming in as another underdog and winning this battle.
This is a surprise. I mean, you were willing to give Not Man up in that battle against Roy.
Yeah, because I think I was looking at that as man facing his own mortality, and death always wins, death and taxes, all of that. And that was kind of the approach I took, even though Not Man had all of these shape-shifting abilities. But then once you mentioned and kind of put in my head this idea of like the Sims winning, rock, paper, scissors against the Grim Reaper, I was willing to say, you know what? Yeah, let my favorite mascot make it on to the next round. And so this time I'm going to do it again and say that Not Man should make it on to the next round.
Yeah, no notes.
All right, here we go. Not Man making it on to round 3. This is such a surprise to me. I thought he was going to be out in round 1, and yet here we are. Not Man making it to the semifinals. Good for him. Good for Queens. Represent.
Yeah, baby.
Let's see some other guys from Queens make it into the playoffs, please, for fuck's sake.
I don't know what that's referencing.
I'm talking about my New York Mets.
The Mets? Okay.
Yes.
Again, Chris is teaching me things here. This is a journey that we're both on together.
Oh,
and I feel so loved because of this.
All right. So moving on.
This is a tough one.
This is once again, we said they were allies the previous round. And now they find themselves on opposite sides of the battlefield. We have Traitor Guy taking on Sodom's Knarrenheinz. This is a tough one. I will say, we have seen Traitor Guy wield a machine gun. I don't know how much he would stand up against to the fire of a machine gun and all the different automatic weapons we've seen Knarrenheinz use. As much as I love Traitor Guy and as much as I love how he's basically a predator and is fucking shit up, my instinct is to say this goes to Knarrenheinz because on every album cover he's shown just like committing war crimes.
Right.
And so I think that can put that in his favor, but this is a very tough choice for me. John, what do you think?
I mean, Knarrenheinz is a fucking beefcake, right? He's huge. He's got the size on his side. But if we're taking the approach that Traitor Guy is basically a predator, he's got invisibility. He's got a fucking shoulder-mounted laser, right? Fine. Okay, but maybe we've never really seen it on an album cover, though.
Yeah.
That's the thing. That's the thing.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, there's been, like we said, there's been talk that maybe he's a predator, but from what we've seen, he's just a guy with long hair with razor-sharp teeth. And
I don't know, though. Would you want to meet a guy with really long hair and razor-sharp teeth in the...
If I'm jacked up on Bane's Venom with the submachine gun, I don't care who you are. I'm fucking...
Okay.
Anyway, I started blasting, all right? That's Knarrenheinz's entire thing. He just started blasting.
So here is my justification for why we're giving it to Knarrenheinz, as much as that pains me. Knarrenheinz is basically like Arnold wielding the minigun in T2.
Okay.
And we all know that Arnold took on the Predator, that ugly motherfucker.
Hell so, yeah.
We got to give it to Knarrenheinz.
That's true. Big beefy dudes are the Predator's one weakness. So it's got to go to Knarrenheinz.
His one weakness, hunky boys.
Yes. And our final...
Me too, Traitor Guy, me too.
And our final round 2 matchup, Overkill's Chally taking on the Manowarrior. This is another really tough one. I think Chally is a way more dangerous beast than the Baphogoat, because the Baphogoat, the Manowarrior fighting it, that's just a sword fight. Yeah. Like we said, Chally shoots lasers.
Yeah.
And Chally has been shown to be, a skull with bat wings, but then also like made out of stone. Like I think for this album cover that this shirt is from, made out of iron for Ironbound, made out of Metal Gears for whichever fucking album cover that is that I can't remember the name of. So Chally, I think, has been shown to have some different, maybe some shape-shifting abilities that will make it resistant to the Manowarrior's only weapon of a sword. So this is definitely a tough one. I want to say the Manowarrior would have what it takes to defeat Chally, but I don't know. I just, I keep coming back to the lasers shooting out of his eyes.
My instinct says that there's no way that the Manowarrior has not faced a Chally-like beast before.
I mean, that's true.
You would think that in the same way that Hercules had to slay the lion, that the Manowarrior, in order to earn his title, had to face some sort of laser skull batwing creature. But Chally has the power of Bobby Blitz and all of New Jersey behind him, and for that reason, I have to give it to Chally.
Yeah, this is tough, because I was also gonna say, on the Gods of War album cover, there's 4 of them, and they're surrounded by beautiful naked women. So the Manowarrior has a lot going for him, but
he's got the power of his bros and sex behind him.
Yes, but I think that might be the scene when he arrives in Valhalla, when he falls to Chally.
Okay.
I think Chally is taking it and moving on to the semifinals.
I dig it.
All right.
It could also be said that the Manowarrior was just distracted by the sins of the flesh, and
it could be. He
wasn't locked in, bro. He wasn't fucking locked in, so he lost it to Chally.
All right. So now we are in round 3 of the semifinals. Our first semifinal matchup: Eddie taking on Not Man. Now we've hyped Not Man up a lot.
Yeah.
In this tournament, Not Man has shape-shifting abilities. Not Man is undefeated in rock paper scissors. Not Man has so far defeated Death itself.
Yeah.
And the Violator. I want to say this goes to Eddie, but I kind of feel like Not Man is kind of like the dark horse who's just like, everyone underestimated the dude from Queens, and he's just fucking everyone's day up. And the one thing I don't know, I feel like I remember reading that unfortunately the British controlled Long Island for most of the Revolutionary War.
Okay.
So, Eddie might have that advantage, but at the same time, Not Man clearly grew up in Queens, and that's his home turf. And so it's tough for me to say that Not Man definitely beats Eddie, but I'm ready to say that he would. I'm just not sure what the argument is that he does, because one thing I keep coming back to is whichever one it is in time where Eddie's a fucking cyborg with the fucking laser gun. I'm not sure how Not Man stands up to that.
I'll tell you what. I'm giving it to Not Man for one simple reason, and I don't know if you want to call shenanigans on me for this. That's fine, because I don't know that it's canonical. But Eddie has expressed a desire to retire to a more relaxing climate. He has expressed a desire to just chill on a fucking beach like Jimmy Buffett.
Yes.
When you've lost that spark for violence, you've lost it all.
Yeah.
And as anyone from Queens knows, they're all fucking violent. It's deep within us. All right? You get our fucking order wrong, at the deli, and we're getting fucking loud. So, Chris, you were ready to give him up in round 1. I'm giving you Not Man. I'm defending him. He's my boy.
Eddie is ready to retire, like, the investigative journalists at Hard Times discovered. Eddie just wants to fucking relax on a beach with a margarita. He's tired of fighting in World War II. Yeah. He's tired of being a mummy. He's tired of looking at that weird baby riding the dog on the Dance of Death album cover. I'm going to keep insulting that album cover. It never gets old making fun of that album cover. I think Not Man is moving on to the finals.
Yeah, we got to do it.
And now we find out who Not Man's opponent will be in the finals as Knarrenheinz, representing Sodom, takes on Overkill's Chally. Again,
this is a tough one.
Knarrenheinz does have the power of Venom's Bane and automatic weaponry on his side. But Chally does have lasers. So this is
fucking lasers.
This is very tough. This is a really tough one. I kind of want to go with the automatic weapons that Knarrenheinz has.
Right.
But I'm not completely convinced that Knarrenheinz defeats Chally. The Manowarrior fought. It's the Manowarrior fought valiantly, but Chally came out on top. I think, like I said, Chally has shown some perhaps shape-shifting abilities in being made of flesh or iron or stone or any type of metal. So maybe he could resist some of the bullets used by Knarrenheinz. But I think Knarrenheinz, while mostly depicted as using a machine gun, I think Knarrenheinz, like I said, someone who has committed war crimes and will use whatever weapons are at his disposal to destroy his enemy. So, similar to how big muscly dudes, are a predator's weakness, maybe big muscly dudes are Chally's weakness.
Maybe. And you know what? Here's the thing that Knarrenheinz has that the Manowarrior was lacking. Knarrenheinz was not distracted by women.
That's true.
Knarrenheinz is in it for the love of the fucking game.
That's why he's wearing that gas mask, and that keeps him focused on destroying his enemies.
Right. It keeps him... It's like no sex before the fucking boxing match, right? That's Knarrenheinz's fucking mentality. That's his way of thinking. So, as much as it pains me, and as much as I think that whatever Chally is made of is the same substance, that comes from New Jersey that Knarrenheinz is pumping into his veins, but maybe that's the key, It's that toxic substance from New Jersey that's going into Knarrenheinz.
The Hudson River?
Yeah. Yeah, dude. I am going to have to give it to fucking Knarrenheinz.
We're giving it to Knarrenheinz. Moving on to the finals. Chally. And now here we are. The final round of our Metal Mascot Battle Royale. The Dark Horse. The Underdog. The man from Queens himself, Not Man, representing Anthrax, is taking on Knarrenheinz, representing Sodom. I don't know how we don't give this to Not Man. Like, when you see the fucking gauntlet he's run through, like I said, Knarrenheinz has defeated some fucked up beasts. Knarrenheinz has used the power of big muscly dudes from 80s action films. Knarrenheinz has committed war crimes. But Not Man can shapeshift into King Kong, who, fought off military biplanes.
Yeah.
And can, smack them around. So what good is Knarrenheinz submachine gun against a god? Have we just deified Not Man? Have we just turned him into like a fucking like mythological beast?
I think we may have. I mean, okay. So Not Man made it through death himself.
Yes.
Danzig's big horny skull.
Yes.
Eddie of Iron Maiden. I mean, that feels like sacrilege in and of itself.
Yes.
All right. So to play devil's advocate here.
Okay.
Knarrenheinz is a trained professional.
Yes. Yes,
Not Man is getting by on chutzpah and chutzpah alone. So how far will that get you in life? Right? The power of queens and chutzpah can only get you but so far. But I do respect it.
Yeah. You know,
Knarrenheinz,
that was our argument against Snaggletooth, is that Snaggletooth was aggressive, but Eddie has tactics on his side. And once again, Knarrenheinz, a military mind, as mad as that mind may be, it is a military mind. And so I think there is some military tactics, some military training there. Not Man is, you know, it makes me think of a funny argument I've seen people make online, is that we as humans have to exercise to not only gain muscle, but maintain muscle.
Right.
And that, I think, is representative of Knarrenheinz. But people have said, what if we could train a silverback gorilla to lift weights and exercise? Without doing any exercise, they're strong as fuck.
Oh, yeah.
What would happen if we gave them a regimented workout? Would they be even stronger?
I love this fucking argument.
I've seen arguments say that they wouldn't, that you know, silverback gorillas evolved in a way where they are at their physical peak. They don't have to work out to do that. Humans did not evolve that way. That's why we have to exercise to get to that way. But that's kind of the thought process I'm having right now, is that Not Man is the silverback gorilla who has just evolved to be as strong as fucking possible in nature because he has to deal with living in Queens.
Right.
You know, dealing with living in one of the 5 boroughs. You know, that's what Not Man deals with on a daily basis. Whereas Knarrenheinz he has the military training. He's got, you know, the sensory deprivation gas mask that he's wearing so that he can focus on his task of killing.
Yeah.
This is a tough one because I think if Not Man could be trained the way people wish we could train a gorilla to lift weights, I think Not Man takes this easily. But they currently stand, I mean, I think this could go either way just because, like, every time we speak, I lean one way or the other. I convince myself it should be Knarrenheinz, and then I convince myself it should be Not Man. This is a very challenging final matchup in this Battle Royale. Not the matchup I was expecting.
Yeah.
And it is way more challenging than I would have expected this to be.
It's the matchup we deserve.
Yes.
So I'm going to act as a deciding party, if you will, Chris.
Okay.
I think that we're gonna have to go with Knarrenheinz. Oh my God! It's Skullbat! Skullbat is back with the steel chair, and he takes out Knarrenheinz from behind. He never saw it coming. Oh my God! Not Man has him down on the mat for the 3 count. 1, 2, 3. It's Not Man. Holy shit! I never saw that coming.
Skullbat with the steel chair.
I never saw that coming. Yes. It had to be this way.
Oh, boy.
I think it had to be this way.
It had to be this way. It turned into a professional wrestling match where, you know, past opponents, which Knarrenheinz didn't even face fucking Skullbat. Skullbat was just pissed off.
He was pissed off because we breezed past him.
We breezed past Skullbat. Skullbat was like, nobody overlooks me. And he comes in and he is like, oh, you think you're... See, but here's the thing, though. Not to completely derail, because I want to agree that Not Man should win. But Skullbat lost to Chally.
Right.
Charlie represents Overkill and New Jersey.
Right.
Unfortunately, New York and New Jersey were part of the tri-state area. Could it be a tri-state area beef where Skullbat comes in and is like, why the fuck would I want to see, someone from the New York, New Jersey area
Right.
win this thing?
Right.
Or, and I think we'll go with this, Skullbat thinks it would be fucking hilarious for someone from New York to win because they got pushed over by some Bruce Springsteen loving New Jerseyan.
Yes.
And they're like, you know what? Fuck you, New Jersey. The New Yorker is taking this. Hits Knarrenheinz with the steel chair. Not Man stomps him out. Does a fucking 50-50 grind on the ropes around the ring as a fucking victory lap. Not Man, representing Anthrax, is the winner of our Heavy Metal Mascot Battle Royale.
There we go. Holy shit. Ring the bells. Fucking parade him around. Raise that hand in the air.
Hell yeah.
Dude, he made it through fucking hell and back.
That was a fucking gauntlet. Like, that was, John, you're not going to get this, but that was the equivalent of, like, the lowest seeded wild card winning the entire championship. Like, this dude faced a fucking gauntlet of Death, the Violator, Eddie, and a basically war crimes machine.
Yeah.
And won the whole goddamn thing. I love it.
This was fucking phenomenal. I want to do more of these. If you guys love how fucking ridiculous that was, then please suggest more of these for us because this was a ton of fucking fun. Chris, this episode was more exhilarating than I ever even thought it could be. This was so exciting to be able to go into the nitty-gritty of why one mascot would win over the other. This was so much fun. I definitely want to do more seed episodes like this, more bracket episodes, head-to-heads. This was so much fun. You have to hit us with a suggestion for this episode. As maybe even someone else who came in with a steel chair at the end, someone who was hidden under the ring.
So my suggestion for this episode, like I said, this has been so much fun. It's been so much fun, looking at these head-to-heads. But my suggestion is from our winner today, Not Man, representing Anthrax, and their album, Worship Music. This album features some really good music. It has Fight 'Em Till You Can't, Crawl, In the End, which is their tribute to Dimebag and Dio, and also features a cover of the song New Noise by Refused. But the other reason I wanted to suggest this album is because earlier this episode I misspoke, and I said that Not Man has never been on an Anthrax album cover, and I remembered after we determined that he wins this Battle Royale that is a lie, and that the article that I also read that in and remembered is lying to you, because Not Man is on the album cover for Worship Music, but he's not the focus of the album cover. You can see like the lower half of his face right below Anthrax's name at the top of the album cover. So the entire album cover is all these like really weird looking creatures like reaching towards this light in the middle of the album cover. And right at the top, underneath Anthrax's name, you can see the lower half of Not Man's face. And Not Man has, in fact, been on an Anthrax album cover. So it seemed to make sense to me to suggest that album as my suggestion this week, which is Anthrax's Worship Music.
That's awesome. That is awesome. It's our little Queens boy just making it all the way through to the end. I couldn't be any more proud. So for my suggestion this week, I love a good crazy looking mascot, as is evident by my defending Not Man throughout this entire tournament, the underdog that he is. But my suggestion for this week, because of their mascot, is Quiet Riot's song Metal Health. Because their mascot, the man in the iron mask, is so fucking cool. Yes. He just looks like a dude in like a hockey mask made of metal.
Yep.
And he's got a red straitjacket on. The guy just looks like an absolute maniac. And if we let him run loose with these guys, he'd basically be mankind. So who knows what he would do? He would throw himself off of the top of a cage right into the Spanish announcement table.
Yep.
You know, so for that reason and that reason alone, I have to suggest Quiet Riot's Metal Health.
Didn't they also make that Leonardo DiCaprio movie about him?
That's very true, yes. He has the power of heavy metal and Leonardo DiCaprio behind him.
And I think the Three Musketeers are in that movie.
Is that what it's about?
I think so. I think it's combining stuff, and they tossed the Three Musketeers in.
On this episode of 90s movies John has not seen.
It's a French version of the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Oh, God. I didn't even like the American version of that.
Well, the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen is British.
I didn't even like the British version of that.
Well, I'm going to stop. Because it's based on an Alan Moore comic book, and it's all like characters from British literature. And then for the movie, they thought Americans wouldn't like a movie only about British characters. So they turned Tom Sawyer into like a CIA agent. It was bad.
It's a bad movie.
It was bad. The movie was bad. The comics are great.
Real bad movie.
The movie is bad. But yeah, it's, Man in the Iron Mask is about the fucking Man in the Iron Mask and the Three Musketeers. Which I'm
for some reason.
Yeah, it's all French.
So we should be suggesting Gojira then. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Scrap Metal Podcast. The time has come for us to pack up our gear, but we'll be back to rock out with you in the next episode.
Stay metal, everyone.
Good night.